Okay, so here we are live once again. Let me make sure that the video's picking up and everything, and we'll go ahead and get started on this episode once I'm sure that I've got picture. So finally we're gonna open up this guy. Here we go. We got Blackhawk, and this is a Mcfarlane collector edition. And you know what that means? That means it's overpriced. But is this guy overpriced? Or is he just kind of like, how overpriced is he? Is what I want to ask. Is he just moderately overpriced? Is he ridiculously overpriced? We know that I thought Dr. Midnight was ridiculously overpriced. That should not have been a collector edition figure. But here recently, we opened up. What was the last one that I opened up from the Farlane Collector Edition? That one I thought was much more. Yeah, it was well, no, that wasn't even Mcfarlane Collector. That was the regular Superman. I opened him up, this Superman Returns figure. That one, like, was a great figure. I was pretty happy with that. What was the last one that? Let me check. Let me consult the archives. Look on my my videos here. So let's see. We opened up. Go to where the live is at. I don't know why you got to put that in a separate area now. Yeah, so we opened up that Superman Returns figure. Yeah, Dr. Midnight was the last collector edition that I opened up. And I was very disappointed with Dr. Midnight. Like, it was an okay figure. It was a good figure, don't get me wrong. Would have been better if it had a wired cape. But the main problem with that was the price. That did not need to be a collector edition figure. Does this one need to be a collector edition figure? Let's find out, shall we? Al Davis is here and says, Blackhawk! Indeed. Good evening to you, too. So, yeah, they're a lovely piece of artwork on the back by Murphy Anderson. This is from the Who's Who entry. Mcfarlane tends to use the Who's Who entry a lot. And one of the things that I like about when they do that is they usually tend to have this sort of border around it with the Ben-Day dots. And that was designed by DC's graphic designer, their head graphic designer of the late 80s to the early 90s, Neil Posner, who sadly passed away far too young. Very talented man. So let's go ahead and open him up. And Murphy Anderson, man, you can't go wrong with Murphy Anderson. He's just kind of like one of the all-time great DC Comics artists. So we'll go ahead and take him out of the package. And first thing I notice is that Blackhawk has... Where are my snips? I was pretty sure they were over here. Over here in this area. Where did they go? Maybe I put them over there. No, I don't see them. They're not underneath this. Not underneath that. Where is they? That's going to be annoying later because I know I'm going to need those later for a project I'm working on. Well, whatever. Let's not worry about it now. For now, we're just gonna do it the old-fashioned way and cut it with the X-Acto knife. So he's got double rubber tab around each of these ankles. I like how they do that because that's less for me to have to worry about cutting and less garbage I'm gonna have strewn around my room, which I got enough right now, don't I? And then hopefully he should just come right out after that. I think that's the only rubber tabs holding him in. And there we go. We got Blackhawk out of the package. Al Davis says, I love how the Rocketeer used button over leather coat. Super cool. And then 3D printed shells with nooks needed. Yeah, maybe. That's probably not a bad idea. And he does reuse a lot of parts from Steve Trevor. Like, I'm pretty sure these are the same exact legs, the same exact arms. He's got a different... I don't know if the torso underneath is different, but this rubber jacket piece obviously is different. The head is different. And I believe that his hat comes off. And we got this kind of creepy plug on top of his head. And one of Blackhawk's accessories is he does come with a separate hair piece. So if you want to have Blackhawk without his hat on, you can do that. There's a little bit of grease on his forehead, so I'm going to go ahead and clean that off and get the hair on there all the way. And he's a rather handsome-looking bloke. He could pass for Bruce Wayne, I think. If you want to do a custom Bruce Wayne figure, this would be a good head to use. But I'm not going to leave the hair on him. I'm gonna leave the hat on him. So I can get that back off and get the hat placed back on there. And the hat looks to be like it looks like it's painted blue, but I think it's probably molded blue plastic underneath. So we gotta get that hat back on and and I do really like this head sculpt. He's got this kind of smirk on his face. He's got this kind of Bruce Campbell sort of look. I like that. He's got the ascot, like the pilot scarf kind of thing going on. He's got his collar popped. He's got his blue leather jacket with the bibbed front, a toupee. Yeah, maybe. I mean, this dude was fighting evil for a long time, like, well into the 1980s at least in the original continuity. So yeah, he was he might be wearing a rug, who knows? And he comes with a plethora of accessories. Man, I tell you, for the longest time, Mcfarlane could not give DC characters guns. Even characters like the Red Hood, which it totally makes sense for them to have a gun. They just weren't allowed to do it. And now it seems like finally that, the gloves are off and they can do guns. They're just doing characters with like whole freaking arsenals. And by the way, I should point out, I didn't point out before, that this is a figure that's 17 and up. And it has the disclaimer on the bottom that reads collector's age 17 in 3 different languages. And that's because of the guns. They don't want to sell guns to the kiddies. So that's why. So, and our next DC figure that we're going to open up is going to be Vigilante. And he comes with guns as well. The same guns that Jonah Hex came with, which I think was the very first Mcfarlane DC superhero figure to have any guns, was Jonah Hex. But how do you do Jonah Hex without guns? That's even dumber than doing Sergeant Rock without guns. And doing Sergeant Rock without guns was pretty dumb. They should have just waited a little bit and done Sergeant Rock later. Give us a better Sergeant Rock later. Hefe says, what is Lone Dragon says, Hefe, what is a plethora? Like a large amount. He comes with a bunch of guns. That's what I'm saying. Does the hat not have sideburns attached? It does, actually. The 2-0 kid. Yeah, see, it's got sideburns on there. And it's got the hair on the back of the head. Don't worry, it's got hair attached to it. It's fine. He looks fine. They could have just given him this head just straight up with the hat and everything glued on, and Three Amigos reference. I missed that. I haven't seen Three Amigos in forever. I need to watch it again. Okay. Yeah, that really makes me want to watch it again. It's a lot of guns is what it is. So we can just have all kinds of Three Amigos references when we do Vigilante. That should be fun. He's a singing cowboy after all. We're gonna have fun with that episode. And you can see he's got clenched fists on the figure, so we're gonna have to swap out his hands. Where are his hands? Where are the extra hands? Actually, this one is not a clenched fist. I just noticed the fingers just kind of curled under the thumb. So we can fit guns into that hand. So that's good. But I'd rather he had 2 open hands so that I could, have him holding 2 guns at once, or having hold the rifle or the shotgun in 2 hands, or the Tommy gun in 2 hands. Lone Dragon says, I would like to think that someone would not tell someone else that he has a plethora and then find out that the other person has no idea what it means to have a plethora. Well, you might want to go to the doctor and get that looked at. Anyway. Yeah, so there's no extra hands, which I thought there was going to be extra hands that I just didn't notice, but they aren't in there. And last but not least, we got a Tommy gun. And if I did buy the Sergeant Rock figure, this would probably be the gun that I would swipe for Sergeant Rock. He would get the Tommy gun. All right, so we got a Tommy gun. We got a shotgun that sadly got kind of warped in the package. I'll straighten that out later. We got an AK-47. And we got a 45 automatic. So for those of you who don't know who the background of this character is, that Blackhawk is Polish. And in the original comic, I believe he was actually supposed to be a Polish person from Poland, like an actual Pole. And later on, they kind of retconned it so that he was an American of Polish descent. And then I think after Crisis, they wound up, Thompson submachine gun. Yeah, exactly. The Tommy gun, the gangster gun. That one. Yeah, that one. Mcfarlane. Oh, they do now, Lone Dragon. They do now. They found a loophole. They just put on here that this is like for 17 and up. This is an R-rated action figure. This is an adult collectible. Kids should not be playing with Blackhawk. So I remember who was it that was asking me about this? Was it you, Al Davis, or was it somebody else was asking me, like, could you just get like multiple Blackhawk figures and swap out the heads? You could do that to make the rest of the team, but unfortunately, this Blackhawk insignia is actually sculpted into the chest panel. So I don't know how easy it would be to sand that off, since it's that kind of rubbery material. Yeah, I thought it was you. I just couldn't remember for certain. I didn't want to be putting words in your mouth if it wasn't you that said it. But yeah, the other Blackhawks on the team technically did not have the insignia. It was only Blackhawk himself that had that insignia. But if A, you don't mind, or B, you don't mind putting some effort into getting it off, or C, you know a way to get it off, because like I said, I don't know how I'd sand to this soft rubber. I don't know how well it would work. I'm sure there's a way to do it, but I don't know what it is. They could just all have the insignia on their chest if you don't really care about that. You can maybe paint over it and not mind that it's sculpted on there, even though it's not painted. Archie Bunker had a few things to say about them there. I'm not going to say that word. But yeah, Michael Stivic, that would have been like one of the earliest examples I knew of a Polish person in other media. So rest in peace, Rob Reiner. That's you didn't deserve to go out like that. That's sad. So anyway, yeah, his underlings: Black Parrot, Black Pigeon, Black Emu. Well, you had Chuck, and you had Chop Chop. I don't like to call him that, but that was his name at the time. But they called him Chopper, which is better. But like, but yeah, you had the gimmick of Blackhawk was originally the team, like with Blackhawk himself being Polish. They were all supposed to be from countries that had been conquered by the Axis powers. So they all got together, these great pilots, and formed their own flying squadron to destroy the Axis powers, and that's where Blackhawk came from. So and the comic wound up being very popular well into the 1950s, so that when Quality Comics wound up wanting to call it a day, and they sold off their assets, they sold Blackhawk and all the rest of their characters to DC. And here's where we get into what I was talking about the other day with R.I.P. Meathead. God bless him. R.I.P. Meathead. But yeah, like when I call him that with love. So I grew up watching that show. That was one of my grandparents. They really liked that show. So but yeah, so Quality Comics eventually, I think, like either went entirely out of business, or just got out of the comic book business one. And Blackhawk was still a popular enough publication that DC saw some potential in continuing Blackhawk. So they bought Quality Comics, basically, so that they can continue to publish Blackhawk. And they picked up the numbering of the original series and everything. And Blackhawk, that original Blackhawk series ran on into the 1970s. And like it kind of dropped off in popularity in the 1960s. And would kind of brought back intermittently throughout the 70s and 80s. We talked about this last time. There was a period where it looked like Steven Spielberg was going to do a movie based on Blackhawk, and unfortunately that never happened. But around that time they did. My 3D friend is about to beep at us. I think is it. Okay, fine, whatever. So yeah, like Steven Spielberg was going to do this Blackhawk movie. And they brought back the comic book around that time, and it was Mark Evanier, however you say that name. There it goes. And Dan Spiegel was drawing it. Great comic. But it was basically, so that they could have the, have a Blackhawk comic on the stands when the movie came out, and the movie never did come out. There was a movie called Blackhawk Down, Lone Dragon, but it was not about Blackhawk. It was about the Blackhawk helicopter. I'm sure you know that. But it did have the Incredible Hulk in it. So Eric Bana, he was in that movie. So, so yeah, and I touched on this when I was talking about this figure before, is that I kind of think that Blackhawk was actually the most important acquisition that DC made in terms of picking up other characters. Not even because of Blackhawk himself, which, DC did have some success with, so it is a good thing they picked up Blackhawk. But when they bought Quality Comics, they wound up getting a plethora, a large amount of other characters in which they could publish, including Phantom Lady, the Human Bomb, Uncle Sam, Manhunter. DC already had a Manhunter at the time, but now they had another one. Probably like the character that DC has had the most success with, and the most famous of their acquisitions. I think that your mom has heard of this character, Plastic Man. So, and like they didn't even know that they had Plastic Man at first, because they were more interested in Blackhawk than anything else. In fact, Julie Schwartz created the Elongated Man. Him and Carmine Infantino and John Broome, I think, was the writer on that one. They created Elongated Man to appear in the Flash. And Julie Schwartz said that if he had known that they had Plastic Man, they would have just used Plastic Man, but he wasn't even aware of it. So Lone Dragon says, I liked The Losers. It had Negan and Captain America in it. Yeah, like they do all kinds of crazy DC Marvel crossovers in the movies that you don't even know about. And then Lone Dragon says that The Losers was the knockoff A-Team. Yeah, basically. I mean, honestly, that version of The Losers was anyway. The original version of Losers was something completely different, but we're not going to get into that right now. We could spend a long time talking about DC's various military comics and the ones I enjoyed. Like I've mentioned before, I'm a fan of Sergeant Rock, and I really love The Unknown Soldier, who I kind of feel like visually, at least, was one of the big influences for Snake Eyes. At least when you see Snake Eyes with the bandages and everything, not when he's in his Snake Eyes outfit. And then Al Davis says Michael from the Lost Boys was the bad guy in Losers. Jason Patrick. And Lone Dragon says, your mom knows about latex, man. I don't think she's very knowledgeable about. She knows about a lot of things, but I don't think she's very knowledgeable about that. My mom is like very wholesome and would have no idea what you're talking about right now. Oh, latex, like they use in the balloons. She would be that person. She's a sweetheart. She really is. So Bobby Wald says they can't make Plastic Man nowadays. It affects the environment too much. Wait until they come up with a character like PLA Man. Well, they actually the Wachowskis were going to do a Plastic Man movie, like back around the time that they did The Matrix. I think they wound up doing The Matrix instead. I think what happened was they were going to do Plastic Man. They were going to do The Matrix and then do Plastic Man, but The Matrix wound up being like way more popular than anybody thought it was going to be. So they wanted doing Matrix sequels instead. But they were talking about doing Plastic Man. Keanu Reeves was going to play Plastic Man. And in that version of the story, Eel O'Brien was going to be like an extreme environmentalist who was breaking into this place because, like, they had toxic chemicals or whatnot, and wound up getting shot by the cops and falling into the acid that turns him into Plastic Man. And then since he's such an environmentalist, he's heartbroken when he finds out that since he's now made out of plastic, his urine is no longer biodegradable. That was maybe the Wachowskis should stay away from comedy. I don't know. Anyway, I didn't talk really much about the figure stand, but there's the figure stand that he comes with, and we didn't talk about the trading card at all. Here's the trading card. That's what the front of the same artwork from the back of the package. There's what the back of the trading card. I can't talk. That's what the back of the trading card looks like, and it reads Blackhawk, DC Classic, data file, real name Janos Prohaska. The post-crisis Blackhawk, we're being specific about this, was Janos Prohaska. I don't think they ever said his name in the original comics. A Polish fighter pilot who fought on the Spanish Civil War. Following the fall of Poland, he traveled to the UK, where he became the commander of the secret Allied Blackhawk Squadron. Blackhawk's team stayed together after World War II and battled communists and supervillains. But I repeat myself. They subsequently served both courier service, Blackhawk Express, and as part of the Checkmate program. So a lot of interesting stuff. All right. Al Davis says, I've never been a fan of rubbery characters. They're very difficult to pull off well in terms of special effects or CGI even. Well, you know, like I've got a fondness for Plastic Man, and I'm a big fan of the Fantastic Four, so obviously I've got a fondness for Reed Richards. And Elongated Man, he's pretty cool. You know, I like Elongated Man just fine. But yeah. Live action, kind of iffy. You know what I mean? Honestly, probably the best they've done at doing that would have been The Mask, where he had like kind of like more like Looney Tunes kind of stretching powers, but still that sort of thing. Polish pilot, hello, yeah, he's Polish. So shout out to the people of Poland. I've got your superhero right here. I think this is why Blackhawk was like particularly popular during the Golden Age, is because not only was he a military character, but he kind of was at least kind of tangentially a superhero character. Like he had a secret identity because nobody knew his real name, and he had a costume, and he had a superhero sounding name, Blackhawk. So I think that probably helped with his popularity in the Golden Age. And like I said, it kind of continued on into the 1950s. But I think in the 60s they were kind of trying to veer away from military characters in like a modern context. And most of the popular military characters at that time were World War II characters. You know, Sergeant Rock, Sergeant Fury, Unknown Soldier. Enemy Ace was a World War I character. But yeah, Blackhawk was originally Polish, and then they retconned him to be a Polish American, an American of Polish descent. And then I think they retconned him back as actually being born in Poland. I prefer him to be from Poland because you don't have that many characters in American comics from Poland. There's not that. There are some, and there's a few G.I. Joe characters that are of Polish descent, so that's cool. Al Davis says checkmate. Well, no, he's Polish, but I think that wasn't there a Czechoslovakian? We don't say Czechoslovakian anymore. Wasn't there a Czech? I'm stuck in the 80s. Sorry. Wasn't there a Czech member of the Blackhawks? Wasn't one of them Czech? I forget. Sergei Blackhawkovich. And that thick, heavy Polish accent, neither was a giveaway. He did actually, on the Justice League cartoon, on the episode where they go back to World War II, remember that one? Blackhawk was on that episode, and they did actually have him voiced with a slight Polish accent, which I thought was really cool. So that was nice. It wasn't thick. It was just kind of like slightly, like you could tell when you pronounce like certain words that like he was English was not his first language. He sounded really cool. The voice, I forget who the voice actor was that did Blackhawk in that, but he did a really good job. He had that kind of like stoic, strong, silent quality that I really liked. So he was really cool. Al Davis says he is intrigued by the look of the Clayface film. Well, maybe that'll be the thing to win you over with the elastic type characters, with the shapeshifters at least. And Lone Dragon says, when is Mcfarlane going to give us a damn Wanna Beast already? Hey, if they do Wanna Beast, I'll buy it. It's that simple. Like that's all I got to say about that. You are preaching to the choir on that, my friend. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the articulation some on this guy, and then we'll talk a little bit about these accessories. So Blackhawk's head rotates all the way around, tilts from side to side. He can look up about that far, look down about that far. Of course, arms rotate all the way around at the shoulders and move up to the sides about that far. And then he's got a bicep sole, so that rotates all the way around. He's got double jointed elbows. That's about the range of motion you get at the elbows. Of course, he's got the cool Mcfarlane wrist articulation, so these wrists can move around any which way you want to. And he's got some kind of articulation under the torso. He can move from side to side, back and forth. I can't quite see under there, but I'm guessing there's like a separate ab piece underneath. Blackhawk can turn all the way around at the waist, but I'm not going to do it with him because I don't want anything to get stuck up under. Robert Picardo was Blackhawk? Yeah, Lone Dragon says Robert Picardo was Blackhawk. Yeah, that explains it because that dude's an awesome actor. And like I said, he did a great job as Blackhawk. I was really impressed with it. I just couldn't remember who it was that played him. I was sure it was somebody that like I would know the name. You know what I mean? But yeah, Robert Picardo, that guy's great. So Blackhawk can kick up about that far, which is not very far, but he's got this kind of rubber skirt thing that gets in the way. You see that he's got an opening here, I guess where the jacket would actually open. There's not one on the corresponding side, so this leg raises a little bit less far. There's a little bit of a wobble right here. Not a lot, but enough you can get some posability out of it. That's about as far as he can do the splits, but, you know, whatever. Blackhawk has double-jointed knees. That is about the range of motion you're going to get at the knees. He's got, like, the same combat boots that Steve Trevor had with the lacing and everything. Lots of wrinkles in the pants. Got some little cargo pockets over there on the side. You know, Steve Trevor being an Army Air Corps pilot, and this guy being a World War II fighter pilot, it makes sense that they would reuse some of the parts on these guys. That you would want some kind of consistency there. And then Lone Dragon says he was also Robert Picardo was also the voice of Amazo. And yeah, I did remember that. And he was great as Amazo. He's just a good actor. Like everything I've seen him in, like. I remember seeing him when I was a kid on a couple of shows that I was watching at the time, which one was China Beach. And that was a Vietnam era show. Dana Delaney, oddly enough, who voiced Lois Lane in the DC animated stuff. She was on that and I had a big crush on her. So I liked that show. And he was also on the Wonder Years where he played Kevin Arnold's PE coach. And he was great on both of these. He was such a good actor, I did not know he was the same guy. And it helps that, like, speaking of hair pieces, hey, maybe Blackhawk does wear a hair piece because Robert Picardo wore a hair piece. He wore a hair piece on China Beach because his character on that had a full head of hair. And then he was bald on the Wonder Year. He wore a baseball cap all the time. And Kevin Arnold accidentally knocked the baseball cap off of him one time. He saw he was bald. Lone Dragon says EMH is my favorite Star Trek character, and China Beach kicked ass. Yeah, that was a great show. And the EMH was a great character. He's probably one of the best characters on Voyager. He might be the best character on Voyager. He's the best character on Voyager that doesn't wear spandex. I'll put it that way. Yeah, he kissed Dana Delaney in her prime. She was hot. Hell, I'd still kiss her now. And Johnny Cab, he was Johnny Cab. You see what I'm talking about? Where like, and he's in a lot of projects. He works with Joe Dante a lot, so he's in most Joe Dante movies. Like he was in Gremlins 2. He wore a hairpiece in Gremlins 2 also. He was in what was Explorers? Was that the name of that one? Where he played. Not only did he play the alien character that befriends the kids in that movie, but he also plays, oddly enough, he plays the character in the movie, within the movie, which was called Starkiller, named after the original name of this character, Luke Starkiller, it was going to be. Got changed at the last minute when George Lucas decided maybe that's a little too intimidating of a name for the hero. So anyway, let's talk about this guy's accessories a little bit. You already saw the Tommy gun in his hand, just because I wanted to see if I could get that finger to uncurl a little bit. Let's get this 45 into his hand. And I would not be surprised if these are weapons that we've seen with some other characters before in this line or in the Mcfarlane weapons packs. But there he is with the 45. I think that might be the same 45, like I said, that came with Steve Trevor, since he does reuse a lot of Steve Trevor's parts. And then we saw him with the Tommy gun already. So let's get him with the shotgun. The shotgun's pretty cool. And he's only got one hand, so he can only hold one weapon at a time. And even if he had two gripping hands instead of one fist hand, he could still only hold at max 2 guns at a time. So you've got some extra guns that you can give to other characters. And like I said, if you're somebody who bought that Sergeant Rock figure, you got some extra weapons you can give to Sergeant Rock now. So that's nice. But yeah, there he is with the shotgun. I said before, he looked kind of like Bruce Campbell. Well, this is my boomstick. So there's that. And then we got the AK-47, which of course is an old Soviet rifle. And Poland was part of the Soviet Union at one point, I believe. Or at least, kind of, not really at their own choice. So this guy, this is a Polish guy who fought communists. So you know where he stood on that. So he probably captured that from one of his enemies. So yeah. And then Al Davis says if they did a plane, people could use it with Indy and his dad from The Last Crusade. Yeah. And that brings us back full circle to Steven Spielberg, doesn't it? So Blackhawk is a really cool character that's kind of, I think, unfortunately, kind of fallen by the wayside as far as like modern popular culture goes. I think if you did it right, you could probably make a movie out of this that would be pretty successful. But then again, they Sky Captain was kind of a Blackhawk movie in a lot of ways. Didn't do that great, unfortunately, but I thought it was a good movie. Maybe the time for this kind of character is past, but I like to think that it hasn't because I don't want to live in that world. TMNT N4W says, hi to you too. Sorry, I don't have any Ninja Turtles to open up right now. I opened up a bunch of them a while back though. But hey, I do have Leonardo hanging out over here. So he's nearby. So yeah, it'd be really cool to see a return to like that kind of pulpy action adventure thing. Spielberg's still making movies. Maybe he's still got one more pulpy World War II era action adventure film. So you came to see what's going on. This is what's going on. We just opened up Blackhawk. So and if not Steven Spielberg, then maybe somebody else. I mean, like. It wasn't that long ago we had Captain America, the First Avenger, and that was another movie in that same sort of vein. So I think why not try Sky Captain? Or I'm sorry, why not try Blackhawk again? I was talking about this last time when I was talking about Blackhawk, teasing this episode, and how like when Steven Spielberg was talking to Warner Brothers around the time that they were restructuring DC. I was kind of like, hey, maybe go ahead and do Blackhawk now. Maybe go ahead and do that. Al Davis says, I loved Sky Captain. Gwyneth was basically a perfect Lois Lane in that. I'd love to see it in full Technicolor, rich, deep colors. Yeah, Sky Captain was good. I wish that movie had done better. And it had a lot of influence from the old Fleischer Superman cartoons. And there was a lot of Blackhawk in there. Sky Captain was basically Blackhawk. That's basically like if you made a Blackhawk movie, he would have been like Sky Captain. He would have been that. Oh, and TMNT says that they subbed. Well, that's awesome. Thank you. And Joe Johnston, he'd be another guy good to direct it. Captain America, First Avenger, Rocketeer. TMNT says, I love Captain America. I love Captain America too. He's my favorite Marvel superhero. So absolutely. But I think it's time to bring this episode to a close. We had a lot of fun looking at Blackhawk and talking a little bit about the history of this character and how he was important for DC in general. And we talked about Robert Picardo a little bit, and he's by a lot of assuming by a lot of TMNT. Yeah, I got like all these packages. Yeah, I still got packages over here that I haven't figured out what to do with yet from the Ultimate figures. But TMNT says, sorry, I was late. It's fine. You can watch the replay. It's fine if you want to. And Aldea says, cheers, Alan, everyone in the chat. Peace and love all. Absolutely. We need more of that in this world, certainly. And that's it for Blackhawk. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure that you like and subscribe and all the other YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about Blackhawk both this figure in particular and this figure in general. I probably should have pointed out, and I had mentioned this before when I was talking about it, there is a platinum edition of this figure where he's wearing a black uniform. I would have probably preferred to have the black uniform to the blue one if I had to pick one. But the blue uniform's still cool. Camille Madi says, great to listen to you as always. Always great to have you in the chat. Lone Dragon says, check your messages one day. One day, I will. Sorry. Al Davis says, I've had a few successes on AliExpress with knockoff figures. Well, that might be something worth looking into. Next DC episode, and I don't know if it's going to be the actual next episode, and I don't know when the next episode is going to be. But the next DC episode, I'm planning on opening up Vigilante, unless something else. Lone Dragon says, so you've been reviewing Blue Hawk all the time? Well, somebody seems to think he's Blue Hawk. They put him in a blue uniform. You know, that's the way that happens sometimes in comics. Is you design a character to have a black uniform, and over time, there's less and less black ink as the artist draws it, and more blue ink as the highlights grow, and then you wind up with Blackhawk in a blue costume. The Solo Ranger, says Al Davis. Well, I don't want to get too into the spoilers, but there's a reason I bought 2 Vigilante figures. I'm just pointing that. Yeah, I bought 2 of these. I bought 2 of this guy for a reason. I'll let you figure out what that reason is. I'll let you do the math. How about that? Knocked over my Batmobile. I guess that was only a matter of time. Lone Dragon says, worst thing about AliExpress is practically 100% a chance the packaging is beat completely to shit when that ain't that the truth. The lone guy's cousin. He's the lonesome stranger. Yeah, I figured that was chance. I translated it. I Google translated it in my head. TMNT says, you look like a cool person, so I joined. Well, thanks. You're obviously cool because you like Ninja Turtles. Anybody who likes Ninja Turtles is my kind of people. So that's it for this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. We will talk to you next time. Bye. All right. That's that.